水流の巫女に命ずる。使命をとして反乱軍による首都侵攻を阻止せよ。承知いたしました。
What's going on, my friends? Today we're talking about episode number 10 of season 4 of the Shield Hero. And before I really got into today's episode, what I really want to talk about just for 1 second is about Motoyasu. So Motoyasu is shown off in this episode because all the heroes go to Coutinlow. They basically unlock a new level of power. What do they call it? Energy something. Basically, they're giving like an energy boost. I think that's what it's called. Energy boost. They're giving like a boost, essentially, by allowing themselves to find the hero's writing, which is just Japanese, essentially, and they're able to absorb that power. In that conversation, as kind of Naofumi's thinking about like, oh, you know, basically it's like, oh, by the power of friendship, you'll be more stronger and whatever like that. He's thinking about Motoyasu. So it cuts to a scene about Motoyasu. And basically Motoyasu is off his rocker. Like he is just, he's lost it a little bit. He's lost the plot a bit, and he's just kind of in his own, he's doing his own thing in his own element. But it seems like he's contracted or befriended like spirits or fairies or fae, which tells me that later on in the story, definitely not season 4, because season 4 is basically done. But at some point in the grander scheme of the story, I can just see the writing on the wall that Motoyasu is going to become a very important part. And whatever he's been doing and whatever he's discovered and whoever he's befriended is going to be like a big part in the war between the other world and whatever else ends up happening. So I just kind of wanted just to mention that really quick because I thought it was just such an interesting anecdote that was kind of sprinkled this episode. And I was like, man, I'm starting to realize that, yeah, he's off his rocker. Yes, he is still obsessed to a worrying degree about Philo, but he's definitely going to become extremely important at some point in the future. Not only because the heroes need to be together to do whatever they're going to do, but also he can just tell that what he's doing is crazy, but it's going to be super useful. Now, outside of that, the other thing that's not really related to the episode is I got to start wondering, everything that Naofumi and the group does, is to kind of get back to Japan, get back to their world. But part of me starting to think, well, there's two things. One is, when it comes to Naofumi and Rand and all of them, like, one, they may not want to. Two, it's unclear if the heroes before them died here or if they went back. We've gotten hints, but we haven't really gotten like complete confirmation, right? And then 3, there's a chance that, yes, travel between worlds is possible, whatever, the world's merging, and that's why the waves happen and stuff. But there's also a big chance that, on the first point that they don't want to, especially now for me with all the ties that relationships he has here. But the third thing is like, they may not be able to, they may be able to stop the waves and stop this other world and stop the worlds from merging or one taking over the other. But there's a chance that they may not get to return home. And you might argue that like, hey, when they were talking to the other Filolio, I forget the Filolio queen, I forget what her name is, but when they were talking to her, she can't really remember. Did he die? Did he return to his world and leave her behind? I haven't watched that section in a long time, but the way I understood it, or the way I've understood it, is that it's just unclear. And when you're watching, shows like this too, these Isekai shows, I was just thinking about Naofumi, considering the relationships that he's built, the family that he's built, the life that he's built, the love that he's built, whatever. I definitely understand, right? It would be very similar to like you moving across the country or to another country without your family, but you know, you still know that they exist. You can still call them whatever. But at the end of the day, you know, do you focus on your new life and with the understanding that you're kind of leaving that old one behind? Or is that old one so important to you that it kind of stagnates your ability to move on to your new life? I don't know. Interesting question. For the rest of episode 10, you know, it kind of, the reason I didn't want to talk too much about the episode is episode 10 is super predictable. It went exactly like we thought, right? Like, the water Miko girl comes and she tries to strike a deal with Raphtalia. She's not completely ignorant. She understands what's going on everywhere, but she has a job to do. She is the order taker, order receiver, the one who fulfills all the emperor's desires. So whoever's at the seat, it doesn't really matter. They do whatever, she does whatever they tell her to do. And we could have all assumed, and we do assume, that the emperor is young, but the emperor is also, or empress, whatever, is also being just manipulated by the pink hair lady. And again, that's exactly what happened. The emperor is this kid, and she's just being gaslit and manipulated and everything else by this lady. And she goes to say her piece of like, you know, hey, we need peace, blah, 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 blah. Talk to them. Don't go to war. And again, the pink hair lady manipulates him and whatever else. The other thing is it looks like that could potentially be, you know, obviously that the boy is related to Raphtalia, you know, so that's another interesting thing. And he's a kid, you know, so he says, you know, hey, go to war, whatever, because again, he's being manipulated and everything by Pink Hair Lady, and it's unclear of what she's trying to get out of this, because at this point, the Revolutionary Army essentially has basically taken over 90% of Coutinlow. They occupy this 10% essentially. So it's like the writing's kind of on the wall of like, okay, yeah, you're going to go to war, but you're chancing yourself to A, not win, and B, probably die. Is that what you're trying to get out of this? Like, so what's the bigger game for her? I don't really know. But everything else kind of everything else was already what we knew. So, you know, she's being manipulated and she's going to have to do whatever the emperor says. And the emperor is just a dumb idiot who's just on the throne being manipulated. He's just a puppet. You know what I mean? He's just a puppet emperor. Next episode's called The Oracle Miko, so we'll see what ends up happening there. Lots of Mikos. But yeah, the episode was fine. It was a fine episode. It wasn't like anything like, oh my god, you know, whatever else. The only thing that was really cool about the episode is, you know, Raphtalia solidified herself and she's like, yeah, I will become the empress. You know what I mean? She's like, I will rule this land. Whether she has to be there 100% of the time or not, she's like, I will rule this land. And Naofumi's like, bet, baby boo. So we'll see on what kind of we'll see how they handle that once she does. So I thought that was like an interesting point. So that was kind of the main of the episode for me. So anyways, yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. I think this episode was it was serviceable, you know, let's call it 7 out of 10. It was decent. It was good. You know what I mean? It wasn't anything like riveting, but it wasn't bad. It was just right there in the middle. So I think like 7 out of 10 is more than decent. I think it was a decent episode, and I'm excited to see what happens next week as we kind of see, you know, the Water Miko girl. She came and she kind of like, you know, she's getting fired up because she's going to have to basically go march to her death. And Naofumi's probably not going to allow it. Raphtalia's probably not going to allow it. So Serena's probably not going to allow it. So we'll see what ends up happening there. All right, friends. She should have just pushed the marriage thing with Naofumi. That way she could be like, well, I got to marry the shield hero. I can't exactly go up against it. I don't know what you want me to do. I think that'd be funny. So we'll see what happens there. Anyways, I'll see you guys next week. Peace.